I'm Billy, I'm an alcoholic. So welcome back. So I thought maybe, how many Facebook users do we have in the room? I'm just curious. A lot. So how would you like if we just talked about social media and anonymity for a little bit before we go anywhere else? Okay. So, social media is not going anywhere. We know that. We also know that it's not inherently negative. Like, sure, there's some sponsees who I run into where clearly one of their other problems is anything they do with digitally. Like the internet's one big people, place, and thing for them. Like, it goes away. But the power of communication is clear. So there's both the way we use social media to reach newcomers, and there's social media amongst those of us that are members who interact on Facebook or wherever else. And anonymity. And there's, of course, two types of anonymity in AA, although sometimes we only talk about one. 11th tradition anonymity, which is pretty much press, radio, and film, and public media, and internet. But then there's 12th tradition, which we don't talk about a lot, which is the humility side of anonymity. Now, the one thing we can safely say is that real alcoholics are not wired to be famous for being sober.
Sorry,
What?
I couldn't hear that. The chair moved.
Real alcoholics are not wired to be famous for being sober. The statistics are devastating as far as, can people who are as spiritually broken as us be famous for being sober? Some people think that's the only way to break the stigma, is for all of us to tell the rest of the world that we're recovered alcoholics. I am not one of those people. I believe that the alcoholic ego is my enemy, and that the last thing I need to be famous for is being sober. But Facebook has some interesting implications, and I'm only going to talk about our group conscience as it is today, that you can find in the PI workbook or Understanding Anonymity. And there was an interesting conversation we had before, and with a whiteboard there I can draw a quick example, which I think is good for everybody. Is there anyone here who doesn't know the difference between a public group, a closed group, and a secret group on Facebook? Does everyone know the differences? No. Oh, that's good.
Seriously, don't use Facebook.
Okay. Whether you do or don't, that's personal choice. But the fact of the matter is, we have a lot of members on Facebook. A public group, a closed group, and a secret group. In a public group, everyone sees the members of that group and can see the comments. It's very simple. In a closed group, only members see the comments. However, everyone can see who's a member. Closed groups, I'm going to put a big line there. According to our current literature, there's no anonymity protection in public or closed groups. It doesn't matter if your comments can't be seen. If I can go in Facebook and see that you're a member of the Friends of Bill or a member of whatever. Secret groups, nothing. Nobody can see that you're a member. Nobody can see your comments unless they're in the group. There is a great secret Facebook group called SES. I think it's one of the best out there. Southeast Service. They talk about service stuff. They talk about general service. They talk about all kinds of questions. But as far as groups go, secret groups meet our anonymity definitions. Any questions about that? We could argue about, well, is it really AA? Who can use the AA name? Blah, blah, blah. But we all know any 2 or 3 alcoholics gathered together anywhere can call themselves an AA group. But it's not an AA group. It's just a Facebook group of AA members. Now, in the best secret groups, like Southeast Servants, if I suggested that you become a member, that administrator will ask you, are you a member of Alcoholics Anonymous? So that anonymity is protected inside that secret group. But the real problem we have is the blurry line. The blurry line is where we have most of our problems. So I'm guessing most of the Facebook users are familiar with the term wall, your wall, where people can write on your wall, where you can broadcast comments out to everybody. So obviously if I wrote on my wall that I'm a member of the early morning AA literature group, that's not within our traditions. Now, if you were to look at my Facebook page, I really don't post there. Almost never now. Now, I travel a lot for work, and I love to run into people that I know. So maybe a couple of years ago, I might have wrote, in LA for 2 days. So, a lot of things we have to worry about with anonymity are the aggregate, not the individual comment. Because I could write in LA for work. My statement has nothing to do with AA. Except I wrote that before I took off from Atlanta, and then I land in LA and I turn on my phone and there's like 6 comments. Comment number 1, what meeting you going to? Now that's not inherently a traditions violation because it doesn't say A. However, people I work with might be like, well, what kind of meetings are you talking about? Or is it a work meeting? Somebody might write, I'm going to the Pacific Group. And they say, will you be there? So it's the aggregate of comments that cause trouble in social media for sure. Now, we have code words. Another problem in Alcoholics Anonymous. Code words. So these are words that inherently might not break your anonymity, but they blur the line. Right? What's the biggest code word we see out there today? The good old Roman numeral.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to write that I'm celebrating my AA anniversary. I'm just going to put up a Roman numeral 5.
Right.
Or I'm going to put up a 10. That somehow, because I am now using Roman numerals, that it is not a tradition violation. Now, technically, on its whole, is that a traditions violation? Well, let's talk about what AA really owns spiritually. If I say I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous in the press, radio, film, I have broken the tradition. That is not even a question. If I use my last name or my full face, I've clearly crossed the line. Our own literature says, though, however, we do not own the word alcoholic. I could appear on a news show or something and say, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I have not violated my 11th tradition anonymity. However, I personally do not think that fits in with the 12th tradition. Not if I'm doing it for my own benefit. I happen to work as an executive for a big company. There are a couple of treatment centers now that specialize in treating executives. every once in a while I get invited to speak at some big gathering, like I won't go. I don't want to be famous for being an alcoholic. There are plenty of places I go, and I think this is the thing that people don't see sometimes is there's ways to spread our message without it depending on our own anonymity. Everybody I work with knows I don't drink. It's not a secret I don't drink. Only a very few people actually get to know why I don't drink. But I think that's a question between a sponsor and a sponsee. Because I think we don't even put that in our sponsees' heads enough. Who do you tell you're an Alcoholics Anonymous? Because anyone who tells you it'll never be used against you is lying. Just telling you that right now. We can talk about the world and the stigmas removed. We can say whatever we want. I'm telling you, there are people who will hold it against you. Even to the point of time doesn't matter, that crazy statement. I can tell you that 3 years ago when I moved to Atlanta, I needed to become a licensed professional for my profession in the state of Georgia. It was a story of my whole life. I passed the test, and then I got a letter that there were irregularities with my fingerprints, and that my case was assigned to a lawyer in this state agency to investigate me. And when I went and met with that lawyer, they had a nice little report. It told them where I was, what somebody else alleges that I did, what I finally admitted that I did, and the disposition of my case. For a blackout drinker, this report is beautiful. Because it makes clear a lot of things. But that woman whose job was to make sure that I was okay, to her, time did matter. To her, what mattered was the last thing on that report was many years ago. She did not want to hear that I got up the earliest of the people who go to a meeting with me, and therefore I'm sober the longest today. She was not part of that club. And I think that's where we've gone a little off the rails as far as we work the program a day at a time, but we have a program for permanent sobriety. But anonymity is a tricky subject in the outside world today, especially with the advent of computers and everything else. And anything that goes up digitally is there forever. I now am involved with recruiting kids that are in their last 2 years of college. And, last year I went and spoke to the 40 new kids who are college graduates who came to work for us. And, they're very different than me. They don't have a huge gap in their resume, right? They're all 22 years old and all together and buttoned up. And I can't even fathom that for me. But I also can't fathom that I can't even imagine if my drinking was documented on social media. It's earth-shattering to me to kind of think what that would have looked like. It's bad enough when you run into an old friend who happens to have one picture from a disposable camera, right? And you're like, holy shit, I didn't even know someone took pictures. But we have to believe that, what we do, that is, everyone is going to see it. And that your anonymity should be personal to yourself. But we also know that it's not like social media is evil. There are many people we know who have seen Al-Anon has a Twitter feed that works very well. We know that certain secret Facebook groups have secret Facebook groups. I mean, there's a group, forget social media, just good old email. I probably give out this email address more than any other email address I'll forward to people. There is a group in Minnesota that every Friday they send out an email of their speaker meeting the night before. One is an MP3 of the speaker's talk. But what makes them different, and the only one in the world that does this, is they also send out a video of the American Sign Language interpreter so that deaf people can get a new speaker meeting every week. And obviously that interpreter might be an AA, might not be an AA, but it doesn't matter. They're there as a professional interpreter, has nothing to do with AA. But there's a place where video is very powerful. Especially, we have not found a way to put, you go to many conferences today and there's a sign language interpreter. But they're not videoed. A deaf member can't listen to the CD, tapes in the good old days. So there's a lot of power in digital technology that obviously we can harness. We just have to be willing to do the footwork to find out how do we fit that within our traditions. How does that work? But we have groups that have secret groups. We have districts that have secret groups. We have conferences that have secret groups. We have all kinds of people who have secret groups on Facebook that are made up of AA members. And those comply with the traditions. As far as your comments on your public wall, I stay away from putting my Roman numerals up for the whole world to see. I don't need to tell the rest of the world that I'm celebrating an AA anniversary. I celebrate it so newcomers see it works. And that's why I do. And inside a secret group, if somebody wants to say congratulations on your anniversary, fine. But I don't need that to be in the outside world. Now, I know that there's lots of other recovery organizations, recovery walks, and all kinds of things that go on today. There's even like recovery fairs where sober houses and treatment centers and everybody are all gathered at a park and they all have a table. I'm not sure AA belongs there. It looks like affiliation to me.